Hey everybody, and welcome back to NetTuts Plus. We're going to take a look at around 9 different things that will allow us to structure our CSS files much more easily. So we're going to take a look at combining multiple properties into one. We'll look at using resets, using frameworks, TextMate tips to quickly add commenting and things like that. And we'll also take a look at some newer things like indenting code and things like that. So we're not building anything today, we're simply going to be working in a blank style.css file. So the very first tip is to combine properties. So hopefully you know this, but if you're new to CSS, you may not be aware that, let's say we have 50 pixels, padding top, 25 pixels, padding right, 50 pixels, and padding bottom, 25 pixels. We can combine these into one styling much more efficiently. So we can set padding, and we can set the top, right, bottom, and left. So in this case, we would do top is 25, right is 50, bottom is 25, and left is 50. And we can get rid of this right now, okay? Much cleaner code. Now, we can do some more with this. We can actually shorten this. So if we only pass 2 values, it'll be assumed that the first is top and bottom, and the second one is left and right. So if I did 2550 pixels, this is the exact same effect as the one above, and this means on the padding top and bottom, set 25 pixels, on the padding left and right, set 50. Okay, but what if we want, for instance, maybe our padding bottom, it's the bottom of our website, and we want 100 pixels of padding on the bottom just to give some breathing room. In that case, we can still shorten this just a bit. If we set a third parameter, at this point it's assumed that the fourth value, which would be padding left, is going to be equal to whatever you set the padding right to. So in this one, padding left will be implied that it's 50 pixels. So we could shorten that just by a few characters or so. So that's helpful. Another one that's pretty common is using font. So you can set font family is Helvetica, font size is 1.4 ems, font weight is bold, things like that. We can actually combine those if we want. So we can even combine it with a line height of 1.6 ems or 1.8 ems. We can set that and just do the font property. And we can begin by saying it's going to be bold, and we want it to be 1.4 ems tall, and we can do a / to also set the line height of 1.8 ems. And then we can set, after that, the font. So Helvetica, and then it's always a best practice in your CSS. Don't just assume that the user has Helvetica, because not every computer does. So set a fallback. And finally, set a fallback to a generic font of just some style, in this case, sans serif. So here we've turned 4, maybe 5 lines of code into one. And this is one that's really not used because I think it's a little more difficult to remember, okay, does the bold go at the beginning? Does it go after? What does this represent? So if it's harder to read for you, by all means, use the longer version, but I tend to like this. Okay, so the next one I want to go over is using a framework. There's nothing wrong with it. A lot of people are against it because they feel it needs to be 100% their code. But when you're simply using margins and floats and setting just some very minimal properties, it can be a huge help, especially if you're working on the clock for clients. This frameworks like 960 and Blueprint will allow you to create your layouts 10 times faster. So you can see this one is 960.js, and you can see this website was actually created with the framework, and you see it's just nice columns here. So in this case, this would be div with the class of grid 4, and that means take up 1/3 of the layout. 960 is based on a design with 960 pixels, so if you're working with a different size, you might want to go for something else. But it's simply a matter of applying classes to your elements. So here, this would be div with the class of grid_6, the same for this one. You can have as many as you want. You could set 6 layers of grid_2. You could do a lot of stuff. So I highly recommend you check out one of the frameworks. The next tip is use a reset. This is highly debated. Some people feel there's no need to reset everything if you're only going to set those styles again. I found in my personal case, excuse me, that it saves me a lot of time and it saves a lot of headache, really, of trying to remember why is this margin being applied or what does this space come from. If I know specifically that I'm setting the values myself, it saves me a lot of time. The most popular one was probably created by Eric Meyer. You can go to this website right here, and it's just a little bit short snippet. You can even copy this into a program like Text Expander or Texter, assign it to a keystroke like reset plus tab, and you can immediately import that into every single new project. Okay, so there are a few of them. There's a YUI reset as well, but I generally just default to Eric's. Okay, so the next step is to indent. This is actually only caught on recently. So let's say I also have header P, and I just want to set maybe margin bottom 20 pixels, something like that. To better organize your code and to better structure it, if it's a child of a parent, so here we're styling the paragraph tags that are children of the header, you would indent this, like so. So if we were then to go forward and style anchor tags, we would do header P A, something like that. So that way we immediately know that this is a child of this, which is a child of this. If you want to go back to style maybe H2 tags, you can do that as well. Okay, and note that we're going back because no longer would the H2 be a child of the anchor tag, so we go back one. Okay, so I recommend you do this. I notice when I build websites myself, I don't naturally indent, and then at the very end I go back and do that. But I'm trying to get better about always indenting when I'm building so I can save myself some time at the very end. Okay, so the next tip is to comment. Commenting is so important. So especially if you're working on a team. So in this case, we're styling the header section, presumably. So one way is just to do header, and that works perfectly fine. What a lot of people like to do is if we search for header here, we're going to get a bunch of different values. So what I like to do is you set an equal sign in front of it, and now if you have a long style sheet and you need to browse only to the header, you simply search for equal sign and then whatever you're searching for, whether it be main or header, and it goes directly to what you need, and that can go to the very top of the section you need to go to. It's pretty helpful. But if you're working in TextMate, which a lot of Mac users do, they even offer a few helpful text snippets for commenting, because a lot of people like something a little bit more in depth. Something like this is pretty common, or you might even see another layer, something like this. TextMate already takes care of that for you, and you may not know about this keyboard shortcut. If you type Control-Shift-B, it sets one up for you, header, and then if you hit Tab, it immediately goes to the next line so you can begin styling. And they kind of have a nice little layout there. So if we're going, and next we're going to style the footer, Control-Shift-B, footer, and we're done. Pretty nice, huh? Take that again. Okay, and easily, without even having to think about it, you're commenting your code. So I highly recommend you take a look at that. Okay, so next let's assume that you're only setting one property. This is pretty common in situations where you maybe to something you only want to apply a margin. So in that case, you could set it all in one line. Margin, top, 50 pixels. No need to create brand new lines if you don't need to. Though, keep in mind that I've found a lot of times you begin by thinking you only have one property, and later you need to add something else, like a font size or something like that. Now, a lot of people are big fans of all in one line. I am personally not, but you need to make up your own mind. When I get to this point where I have multiple properties, it really confuses me, and I've found that when I come back to my style sheet, it's harder for me personally to filter through that. So think about that. Only if you're certain that it's one line. If you like my case, put it on its own line. If you anticipate doing more, go ahead and put each of those on their own line. But like I said, any method is okay. It's what works best for you. Next tip is to set your hex values at the very top. So Control-Shift-B, colors. And here, you would set your primary color, your background color. So you could set black. Black equals 2929, gray, whatever you use in your specific project. And that way, especially if you're slicing and design, you don't always have to return to your Photoshop file to remember, okay, what was the gray that I'm using for this project? All you have to simply do, the way we have it set up, is to search for colors. And you come right to it. Okay? So we could probably clean this up even a little bit more, but you get the general idea. Okay? So let's get rid of that. And let's see what else I want to show you. A couple more shortcuts in TextMate. Did you know that if you're working in something and you want to just quickly comment it out, maybe normally you would do this and then go to the very end and do it like so. But actually TextMate shortens this for us considerably. All we have to do is type Apple // So Apple // There we go. And that immediately sets the commenting for us. So if we have multiple, you can select both of them and do the exact same thing. And TextMate is smart enough to know if you're in a JavaScript file to use 2 //, if you're in a CSS to use // whatever. You set / plus Apple and it'll immediately take care of that for you. So that's a nice little feature. Another one is to label who built your design. So especially if you're building maybe a theme for ThemeForest, at the very top, you should label that you created it, what version, what year you created it. Maybe if you're working on your own projects, you may not see the value in this, but there's a lot of it, especially if you're selling it. TextMate offers another shortcut for head, so HEAD tab, and immediately sets that up. My project, created by Way, and I believe that gets it from your home folder name. It sets the date, it sets the copyright that you can paste in, whether it's GPL or whatnot. And a lot of, otherwise you can just assign this to Texter or Text Expander, but this is why I use TextMate so much, is they have so many features and shortcuts that you may not even know about. There's a couple more we could go over, like separating your styles into separate style sheets and then grouping them together at the end, like creating a typography style sheet, a main style sheet, things like that. I'm not going to go over that, but that's always something to consider. And that's really what I wanted to go over today. So let me know if you have any tricks that I'm not aware of, and I'll see you next time. Bye.